Yes, I'm Ashley Kennedy. I'm also Angeles area realtor, and thank you guys for joining us. Please keep in mind that today's workshop, it will be recorded. So if you have any very specific questions, I would say you can just connect with me and Otis offline. This is meant to be an interactive workshop. So if you have any questions, you can just do the little hand raise or just go ahead and unmute and chime in while we're covering whatever subject that you have a question about. Also, you can utilize the chat. I'm going to, at the end of the workshop, I'm going to email everyone our contact information and links to our calendars, so that way you can schedule a call with us directly. We would love to chat with you individually, so that way we can get an idea of where you're at in the home buying process, and that way we can help you come up with a plan to help you achieve home ownership. What we're going to cover today is we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we will discuss preparing for home ownership, the actual home buying process. Otis will discuss financing, and at the end we'll answer questions. But of course, like I said, if you have any questions as we're going through, feel free to unmute and go ahead and ask your question. A little about me. My name is Ashley Kennedy again. I am Los Angeles native. I went to LAUSD for all the schools. I attended and graduated from UC Irvine. Let's see, I've been a realtor for going on almost 9 years now. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I love DIY projects, I'm a baker. So yeah, that's a little about me. You can feel free to screenshot this if you want, but like I said, at the end, I will email you all both our contact information. And if you're on Instagram, feel free to follow me. It's just at Ashley Kennedy Realtor.
And that's me. Thank you, Ashley. Good morning, everyone. I hope all you guys are doing well. Thank you for getting up on Saturday morning and attending this workshop. You could be doing a lot of other things, but you're here with us, so I definitely appreciate you. My name is Otis L. Milton. I'm a mortgage advisor. I'm an owner of a mortgage company, mortgage brokerage by the name of Milton Financial Group. I've been in the industry of real estate 10 years and 3 months now, past my 10 years in December. I've been a real estate agent like Ashley, a property manager, and now solely a mortgage advisor. So help a lot of first time home buyers, but do a little bit of everything, refinancing, really building a real estate portfolio, whatever your needs are. I'm able to do so with my staff. So it's a little bit about me. I'm a father of 4. My daughter's graduating high school, so I need everyone to buy a house because prom and college costs a lot. So I hope you guys are in there with me. Again, I'm super excited to be here and share some information with you guys this morning. Back to you, Ashley.
Okay. Oops, sorry. So you guys can just unmute, or you can use the chat, but we want to know, like, why do you want to become a flipper? Like, what is your reasoning for it?
Yeah, what made you say now is the time? We can take 1 or 2 responses. If you're too shy, you can write it in the chat, but we would love to hear from you.
And y'all could just unmute. You don't have to. It's only a few of us in here.
And let me act while they're getting ready to get off mute to answer. The reason why we ask that question is super important, really, with everything you do, but especially with this, because for the most of us, this is going to be the biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life until you buy your next house, right? And so the reason why you do it is super important, because if the reason why you're doing it isn't important, you're going to give up, right? So when you sit down with me and I ask for all of this paperwork, then you're gonna be like, oh my God, right? You sit down with Ashley, you guys look at houses, you write offers, you don't get one accepted. If the reason why you're doing it isn't important, you'll walk away from it. And you'll be like, I'll just keep renting my nice apartment that I like in this nice neighborhood that I like, right? So that's why we even ask that question, because we want to know, what's the why, what's tied behind it, what's going to drive you to get to the finish line.
Hi, my name is Rochelle Baldwin, and my reasoning for just being interested in home buying, just for my family. Want to just make sure I have a bigger space for my family and just move to the next. Like, yeah.
Thank you, Rochelle, for sharing. I appreciate that. Family is a big reason. That's a big why. We all know we go above and beyond for our family. Anybody else want to share? And Ashley, thank you for joining us as well. Right now, we're just talking about maybe some of our reasons why we want to purchase property and homes and et cetera.
Good morning. Yes, thank you for having me and sending me the invite. I'm happy I was able to join. I definitely would like to own a home just because I have a daughter. I like having animals and pets, and it would be amazing to have something to have in the family, maybe to pass down to my daughter. And also, too, I would like to get into purchasing more homes and possibly maybe renting them out or selling homes.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing, Ashley. So those are some powerful things. We have family, freedom, legacy, investment. Those are all things that I think that when we think about things we want to leave for our family, I don't think any of us would disagree. And Fatima's put in there in the group chat for stability and generational wealth. Absolutely. One thing that we know for a fact, this is not my opinion or anyone else's. People that own property in this country have more wealth than people that don't. Argue with your mama, right? That's a fact, right? So we know by owning wealth, we're gonna give our families a head start. Janae also put in the group to own something to pass down to my children. That's absolutely. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I haven't come from families that's had a lot passed down, right? So we're kind of starting from scratch each and every time, right? Each and every new generation, we're kind of starting from scratch. So being able to give the family something to pass down, like a home, can be a huge difference. I'll say this and we'll move on. I have a client, her father purchased a property in Baldwin Hills in 1968, right? Which when it was barely legal for African Americans to purchase properties, right? Especially in that area. Purchased a property for $50,000, right? Ashley, what's the average home cost in Baldwin Hills today?
Baldwin?
Yes.
I mean, that varies because if you're talking about like a
We
big
talking about on
area,
the hill. We talking about she on the hill in Victoria.
I'm sorry. Man, what's with my audio? Y'all can hear?
She's on the hill in Victoria. So to give you guys some perspective, that property's worth at a minimum of maybe $2.2 million today. At a minimum. And her father purchased that property in 1968 for $50,000. That's the definition of generational wealth. This isn't like a story I read. Like, this is my actual client.
I mean, I
right?
can give you my example of my home. We bought our house the end of 2019. Yeah, because it's been there 5 years. In 2019, I mean, my bathroom needs to be renovated, but outside of that, so we got our house for 505. I know my house is worth at least 800,000 now. So
that's generational
I
wealth.
mean,
So
I
now
will be,
your daughters have-
honest. We did do some landscaping in the kitchen, but still, that's in the grand scheme of things not that costly. And yeah, just living there, the neighborhood's gone up.
Yep. And later on in the presentation, we'll talk about exactly that, right? Are prices going to go up or go down? I'm sure that's a question that a lot of people have. There's a lot of information and
Some
misinformation about
other
that.
people joined us. Good morning. Oh wait, okay. I don't know. I guess it disappeared. But
Yeah,
we're just sharing, the reason that you want to become a homeowner. Not sure if they meant to join, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and continue. Go ahead.
So I'm going to do a quick, you should see a poll pop up. And if you guys could take the poll, others shouldn't be able to see your responses. It's just for Otis and I, so that way we know we want to kind of like tailor today's presentation to where you guys are at. So it's just, how did you hear about today's workshop? When would you like to be in your home by? What you're comfortable with for a payment? and like your current assets. So I'll just leave it up for like a minute and then we'll move along.
And everyone's participation is appreciated. Thank you.
I'm looking all over the place. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the chat and the Otis, are you able to see?
Yep.
Okay. I think everyone's done, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. Okay, so this is something like to do with fact versus fear. So sometimes we don't try to move forward homeownership because we think we're not able to at that time. So one example is, I can't afford to buy a home right now. A lot of people say that. I felt that way and I'm in the industry. But honestly, you don't know until you speak with the lender and just kind of go ahead, fill out the forms, have a conversation with the lender. You really don't know what you can or can't afford. I know people are hesitant, they don't want to get the credit pulled, but you can go ahead and do that. That way you know where you're at truly. And then if you're where you need to be, amazing. If you need to work on some things, a good lender, they're going to give you a plan. Like Otis, he's going to say, okay, this is where you're at. These are some things you can do to improve your credit if need be. What are your current assets? And then kind of advise on how you can get where you need to be. Another one is, I should pay off my student loans before purchasing. You can have student loans and still purchase a home. You can get a payment plan. Like there's so many options. So definitely have that conversation with the lender before you rule yourself out. Plus, I've seen people, they wanted to save a certain amount, and by the time they got to that amount, the homes had went up, so much that it was like, okay, you got it, great, but now the homes are up and you still don't have the funds. So always talk with the lender first. Fear is, I don't have money now.
Let me say this too on the student loan thing real quick, Ash. We just closed a loan yesterday for a client that has $317,000 of student loan debt. So definitely make sure that we talk about it and figure out if we can work out a plan.
Definitely. Then I don't have 20% for a down payment. A long time ago, like when our parents, grandparents bought, yes, you did have to have 20% down, but that's no longer the case. So don't think because you don't have that amount saved for down payment that you can't still purchase. Otis will go through it later in more detail, but there's so many options for financing. And then lastly, I can't afford to buy my dream home. A lot of people think, if I can't get the house I want, then what's the point? So I always say the best way to get your dream home is to buy your first home. So if need be, depending where you're at, like we're in Southern California, it's pricey out here. A lot of people have to start off with maybe a townhouse or condo, and then you'll stay there, you'll build your equity, and then you can sell that and then move on to what you consider your dream home. But don't, because you can't get, the house at the top of the hill, don't not purchase anything at all. Any, Otis, I can't see the chat. Are you able to, anything? Chat, we're good?
Yeah, we're good. No chat.
Okay, cool. And I don't know what's with my audio. I can hear, but barely. So if y'all say something, just yell. So we're going to go through the 6 steps to homeownership. So step 1, find yourself a knowledgeable realtor, hopefully myself, but regardless, find you someone that's knowledgeable. They're going to educate you on the current market. They're going to educate you on the home buying process and everything that includes. Second step is going to be to get it pre-approved by a great lender, not just a pre-qual, but a pre-approval. They will go through everything with you. They'll discuss finances. They'll let you know what you need for down payment. They'll let you know what you need for your closing costs. And like just your total amount of funds that you need to close. If you don't know what those things mean, they're going to explain all that to you. Then after you've been pre-approved, I like to do the pre-approval first. That way we really know where your numbers are at, because that's going to determine what neighborhoods, what type of property, whether it's a single family or a townhome condo. So we'll do a buyer consultation, or also call it a needs analysis. where that's a one-on-one with me and you, or if it's you and a spouse, we'll do it together. And it's virtual, it's maybe an hour, but basically we're really diving in deep so I can get an understanding of what you're looking for and what you need in a property. I'm going to explain the home buying process. We'll explain what contingencies are and how inspections work, what's an appraisal. We'll discuss all that. And then after that, we'll start, okay, we're going to hone in and say, okay, you're going to be in this area. This is your comfort level. And there's also a difference between what you're pre-approved for, like your maximum that you can qualify for, versus what you're comfortable with. And that'll be a conversation you have with Otis, and you kind of backtrack and say, okay, I want my payment to be, making this up, I want my payment to be $5,000 a month. Okay, so you want pay $5,000 a month, and that means your max purchase price will be X, Y, and Z. Then we'll go out, we will look at properties. When you find something that you really like, you don't have to love it. It doesn't have to be a 10, but if it's a 7.5 or above, and it has little small things that you can do to it to take it to your level of a 10, then you go ahead and submit an offer. And then once that offer is accepted, then that's when you'll complete your inspections, your appraisal, and then at the end you'll get your keys to your home. Trying to think of any questions so far. Check.
Nothing in the chat yet.
We're good. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say I have one. So how does that work? Like, I don't have the full amount that, or probably anywhere near the amount that I would like to save. And I do have student loans, however, I am like a little bit behind on getting those paid off. Would that still affect anything or anyone wanting to work with me? I'm just essentially asking, like, do they really work? Would you all work with someone from like truly from beginning to end?
And notice you can chime in as well. Yeah, that's because a lot of people, there's some people that are ready to go right out the gate, but most people aren't. That's why we always encourage people to reach out ahead of time. So that way you have time, the lender can step you through and create a plan to get you where you need to be. And Otis, you could elaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely want to work with you up front so you know what you're working on. Because otherwise, you're getting all this information, and it could be information overload often, and you're doing all of these things, and it could be like, I don't need to do 17 things. I need to focus on 3, right? And so we definitely want to make sure we have that conversation with you to set the plan. So whether that's a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan, I've had clients for 18 months on a plan before they were able to get everything in order. So whatever it takes, we can do we do follow-ups every 3 months, every 6 months, whatever it takes. But to do that initial, we definitely want to do that, right? To at least see where you are, to get an idea of kind of where we are with the income, where we are with the debts, where we are with the savings, and then what the realistic expectation of what the market is. So then you know what you're working towards. Otherwise, you're just kind of like, oh, I'm saving, but you're saving what? For how much? Like for what end date? Maybe we could pair you with a program to get you in the home sooner, right? So definitely want to have that conversation to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing up front. Daughter's FaceTiming. My apologies.
Perfect. That was a great answer and the one that I was looking for. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we? Okay, are you guys still seeing the screen share, the presentation? Otis, can you see the presentation? Yeah, okay, sorry, it throws me off because I don't see it, so.
Yes, we can still see the
Okay,
presentation.
so why do you need a buyer's agent? So as a buyer's agent, I educate you on the current market, and things are always changing, and some things are very specific depending on the area. And like, for example, if you say Los Angeles, it's going to vary drastically if we're talking Baldwin Vista or if we're talking, say, South LA. So I'll educate you on the market, analyze your needs and wants. So like I said, we'll do the buyer consultation or needs analysis, and that's where you really dive in deep and see what you're looking for, why you're looking for it. And really my job is to make things easier for you, make things as easy as possible. So like I can go preview properties. So that way when we go out, we only need to see a couple homes, maybe say 3 to 5, to make things smoother for you. If you really explain to me what you're looking for. I can go preview them. And if I know it's not going to work for you, we don't even need to go, why waste your time seeing it? We can focus on the ones that really work for you. So that also includes with, like I said, show homes that fit your criteria. I also coordinate the work of other professionals. So for example, like I said, once you open escrow, I will assist with, you can use any inspector you choose, but once you decide on one, I can get the inspection coordinated. If that inspector, the general home inspection, if they say, I suggest you have a plumber come out here. If you have someone you want to use, great. If not, I'll contact someone I have a connection with, get them out there. And you're always welcome to be there. But for instance, the home inspections, I don't know, maybe around 2 hours depending on the size of the property. So you're welcome to stay there the whole time, or you can come in, say like the last 30 minutes, do the walkthrough with them. They give you the recap. And then like the plumber, let's say you're at work, I'll meet them there, record a video, send it to you, and they're going to send you over the report. So my thing is just kind of just make things quicker, smoother for you, negotiate on your behalf. So yeah, I am the main point of contact. You will never have to speak to the sellers or the listing agent directly. I do all that, negotiate everything on your behalf. You as the buyer, it's always your decision. I will share information with you. If you ask my professional opinion, I will share that with you, but it's always up to you. And then, like I said, I just solve any problems that come up. Half the time, my clients don't even know when things get crazy because our job is to be problem solvers, stay one step ahead, and loop you in when need be. But if I have to, if something's going on, then I'm going to have a solution for it, if I have to bring something to you. Any questions?
And I must say, Ashley is very good at what she does, especially on the negotiation side and getting what's deserved for you. This part is determine the why. We kind of did this at the front of the session before we started. And again, I appreciate everybody's responses. We came up with some really good reasons why you all are on this call this morning, why you all are taking the time and initiative to get yourself in order to purchase. So we got good why. So let's move on to the next part and let's get into some tangible stuff that we need to do. I'll wait till Ashley comes back. Any questions thus far before we move on? We're going to get a little bit more into the lender side. So we'll talk more about what we look at from this side, and kind of how you guys can start to prepare yourselves from the lender side, because that's the most important side. Like I get it. I used to be an agent. Like Ashley does the fun job, right? Like looking at the houses, finding the house, all of that. That's the fun stuff, right? But crunching the numbers, finding the right program, finding the right product, finding the right strategy that works for you isn't always the funnest. But to me it is, right? But to most people it's not, right? So I found my niche there in doing that, and I love it. So Ashley, go ahead and move to the next slide.
Okay.
So while she's moving to the next slide, let's get some ideas. Oh, it's up now. Now you guys would be cheating. So let's talk about some credit scores. I'm sure that's a main concern that a lot of people have, because it's considered when you want to buy anything, especially a home, right? What's my credit score? So these are some of the minimum credit scores for most of the programs that your first time home buyers are going to be using. So for an FHA loan, which FHA loans require only 3.5% down payment. It's enlarge it again, Ashley. It went small again, please. Can you enlarge it? It went the minimum score is 580 for FHA loan. And 3.5% down payment. Now, FHA loans will go below 580, where you can still use it. It will actually go down to a 500, but if your score is below a 580, it will require a 10% down payment to utilize an FHA loan, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about FHA loans, why it's the loan for most first-time home buyers, and we'll talk about why that is. The conventional minimum down credit score is a 620. Now I'll be honest with you guys. You can do a conventional on a 620. That's the minimum score. Getting it approved at 620 on a conventional is very, 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 very difficult, right? So in all honesty and transparency, because these systems are algorithmic, just like our social media, right? You know, your social media feed changes, or you know, your YouTube feed changes. So does the algorithms for how they weigh the credit score. So even though the minimum score required is 620, they're weighted and they're looked at and scrutinized much heavier. So I would say we probably, if we're looking at a conventional loan, we should be somewhere around the 650, 660 range at a minimum to comfortably get to an approval. Okay. And VA, I don't know if anyone's on here, veteran, but VA, there's no set minimum score for VA loans. With VA loans, again, the higher the credit score, the better, because your interest rate is going to be based on the credit score. But there's no set minimum score for VA loans. And then if we're looking for down payment assistance, the interest rates vary based on the program. But the lowest programs start at a 640. So if you need down payment assistance to help you offset some of the costs to purchase, then we have some programs like that, and they start at minimum of 640 credit score range. Okay. All these programs can have different credit score ranges. Again, that's why you want to have the conversation, so we know what you need and we know where we're trying to get to, right? You may already be there. In a lot of instances, some people are already there and they're like, oh, I didn't even know. I was working to work. I thought I needed another 2 years, right? But you never know. So any questions about credit scores before we move on? Okay. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and go to the next slide if there's no questions for credit. You guys knew all of this credit information already? And while Ashley is updating the screen, anybody use Credit Karma to manage your credit scores? Don't be ashamed. I do. Anybody familiar with Credit Karma or Credit Wise? Maybe the credit scores, the credit reporting you get with your credit cards. Okay, Credit Karma, Experian, yes. Okay, so before we go on to the next section, we'll talk a little bit about this Credit Karma. Here's a joke. It's not a joke, right? So Credit Karma uses a different scoring model, right? So there's different credit scoring models used by different industries, right? So the credit scoring model that Credit Karma uses, which is a very newer model, it's called a Vantage score model, which is not a FICO score, right? It's not based off from the FICO system. So the score that they arrive at, it is right based on the system in which they score. But you will look at your Experian, or you look at your FICO, or you go try to get a car, and your credit score is 70 points difference, right? Because they use a FICO score. Like in the mortgage industry, we use one of the oldest credit scoring model systems. Hopefully we change that one day. But we use a classic FICO score 4, right? So that means how the score is weighted is different. So we're looking on the credit side, it's primarily based on credit history and payment history. Where based on like Credit Karma, yes, that's weighted, but that's not a large percent. It may be 15-20% of the score. Where on the FICO, that's 35-40% of the score, right? So that's the difference in it. So just know that when you're monitoring them, that's not always the same score based on the industry in which you're trying to go get, right? So if I run your score on a mortgage application, it's probably going to be different than what you see on Experian. And that could be better or worse, not always down. I've seen it be better than the Credit Karma as well. So wanted to add that. Thank you, Ashley, for moving us to the next screen. So now I hope that adds some context to y'all. Did anybody know that? Put a 1 in the chat if you know that. Put a 2 in the chat if you didn't. Okay, so what do you need to get pre-approved? Okay, pre-approved. Okay, so we've heard pre-quals, pre-approved, right? So in this market, a pre-quals almost a waste of your time, right? And Ashley's not going to take you to see any houses with a pre-qual, right? So we want to do a pre-approval. The difference is with a pre-qual is just a conversation. So I can do a pre-qual with one of you guys after this phone conversation, and you could say, I earn X amount of dollars, my debt is X amount, and I have this amount saved up, and I want to buy da. And I say, okay, cool. Based on what you said, you could afford X amount, and you could buy a house at this amount. But that's a pre-qualification. That's only conversation. I haven't seen any of this documentation. So when you submit an offer that way, it's not real, because now when we have to do the application, oh, you have 2 more credit cards you forgot to tell me about, and now you don't qualify for this. So we want to do a pre-approval. We're going to look at the actual documentation and the credit up front. So that means when you get the pre-approval, we've already vetted this out, right? Your income is what it is, your debts are what it says it is. So we're comfortable with giving you this pre-approval, and we've already vetted this out. And most cases, we're going to run it through an automated underwriting system called DU, right? In the industry, you'll hear that term DU, desktop underwriter, right? So that validates it. That says, based on all this information that you gave us, this person can buy a home at this amount, and it'll give the figures of what their estimated payment and cash to close will be. So that's why you want to get a pre-approval. So if you have a regular job, you have a W-2 job, you're employed, these are some of the documentations that we would be looking at. So your 2 most recent pay stubs, bank statements, your 2 most recent W-2s, federal tax returns if you earn income other than your W-2s. If it's just a W-2, we would just do the W-2s. We'll get a copy of your Social Security card and your driver's license or ID, and we'll complete a loan application. So with me, like if you're working with me, once we do a phone consultation, and let's say we deem that you're ready, because at the consultation, we're going to deem 2 things, 1 or 2 things. Either you're ready to move forward and do an application and get a pre-approval, or we're going to give you a plan, and we call it a path to purchase plan, right? So that's, okay, we need to do this with the credit, we need to address this, blah, 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 right? So when you leave the conversation, you're going to have some direction of where to go, right? And so if you're working with me, you do application, after that, I'm gonna send you an email. It's going to have a link to my secured application where you'll fill in all your information. Then it will allow you to upload your documents directly to the secure portal. And then me and my team will get it on our end, and we'll start to work on it. So these are some of the documents that you need if you are W-2 employed. Now, if you've changed jobs within the last 2 years, we'll need W-2s from whatever jobs. But just because you change jobs, that doesn't mean you can't now buy a house, even though as long as you had a 2-year job history of working, right? Okay. Any questions about W-2 documentation that we might need for anyone that's employed? So no, if we don't have any, we'll go to the next slide, Ashley. Now, the next slide is for those who are maybe self-employed, business owners, sole proprietors, LLCs, etc., who earn their income outside of a W-2. So if you earn your outside of a W-2, we're going to look at your 2 most recent years of tax returns. So let's say in this case, we'll be looking at 22 and 23 if you haven't filed your 24 yet. If you have filed your 24 yet, we'll be looking at 23 and 24. And these are conversations. If this is you and you have this situation, we look at the income and see which ones had the higher years, so we can get the most qualified income to get you to qualify for the most house you could buy. If you have an LLC or corporation, we'll look at what percentage of the business that you own, and we'll get the articles of corporation, and we could add that income. If you have a 1099, let's say you do contract work, maybe you're a care provider, etc. We'll look at the contracts to see when those expire, or etc. Essentially what we have to do is we have to see how you're going to continue to make money to pay this back, right? So it's called the ability to repay, right? Ability to repay. That is what our job is as loan originators, is to make sure that if we're doing these types of loans, we show that you have the ability to repay and that there's income that's going to be coming in. So any questions about self-employed income? It looks like Ashley has her hand raised. Feel free, Ashley, to ask your question.
Yes, so one of the problems I feel like I run into, I'm a bartender. So when I do my W-2, it doesn't look as if I make so much money. It might look anywhere from 30 to 40,000 a year when technically it could be more when I add my cash. How does that work?
So what you would need to do is going forward is you would have to add a Schedule C to your tax return as like hospitality. And this is something you would need. I would tell you to implore a tax professional on, but I'll give you a little bit of the groundwork or kind of direction you need to go with that. Um, you would need to add a Schedule C and add yourself as a hospitality worker, right? And then you need to keep a good track of all the cash that you earn, and then you can calculate that on the Schedule C as income. And then once you use that on the Schedule C as income and you file that, we can now use that as income to qualify you for the home along with your W-2.
Awesome. Thank you. That was helpful. I
I
really
hope that helps. But yeah, we can talk more about it, individually, with myself or Ashley and get more detail. But that's the simplest form of how you fix that. Because I've had plenty of clients that I I've had a client in almost every type of field of industry, that I've done a loan for, all of them. This is not, we can go further in another session, but we do bank statement loans as well. Um, Believe it or not, I've had an OnlyFans client with bank statement loan, where we just showed her deposits every month from OnlyFans and she purchased a property. So there's tons of ways to do it. But again, that's why we have the conversation to make sure we have the strategy to get you to where you need to go. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Ash.
Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. But I think you said it, Otis, but I just wanted to add in, like, so that's why we say the whole planning ahead of time. So if you are, like, for example, myself, when we were purchasing, I jacked it up for me and my husband because the way taxes, when you're doing your write-offs, yeah, it's like good and bad, but you want to, if you plan on purchasing property, you want to not take so many write-offs, that way you have a higher income. So I'm sure Otis said that. But from experience, definitely plan ahead, connect with your accountant, CPA, whoever, so you can, have those things planned ahead of time so you're not like shocked when you see the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. My one of my mentors told me years ago when I was going through that, and I was like, man, if I gotta claim all this income, I'm gonna owe X amount of dollars, right? And I'm like bugging out. And he's like, oh, remember you have to pay to play, right? So yes, you gonna owe this money, but you claiming this money allows you to purchase property. So you cannot pay and not claim the money and not buy the property. What do you want to do? Right. So, you got to pay to play. And at the end of the day, just like Ashley said, her property's worth, a couple $100,000 more than she bought it. Imagine if she doesn't pay to play, right? She doesn't bite the bullet and claim that extra income. She doesn't ever get there, right? So super, super important. But that's very detailed, and that's stuff that we uncover. And that's why who you work with is super important, because you're making the biggest decision and purchase of your life. You probably want to have people that know what they're doing, helping you with it, right? So we'll delve a little bit into the loan process, right? So what that looks like, we'll do it from us kind of a surface level, but we'll give some detail. So we went through the loan pre-approval process, what that looks like and why that part is important, right? So we went through that process and you guys have went out with Ashley. Now you're doing the fun part, the cute part. You guys are looking at houses and thinking about ways that you're going to, make it your own and etc. And you guys get an offer accepted, right? Yay. Now it gets real, right? That means, within the next 30 days, you're going to own a property, right? In most cases, unless your contract is written out for a longer close date. Most contracts are going to be 30 days. So once that happens, we're going to sign our loan disclosures, right? You're going to sign disclosures from Ashley, your real estate disclosures, and then you're going to sign your loan disclosures. Those are going to be all signed electronically. And those are going to have your loan estimate in there, all of your state and federal disclosures, etc. Once you sign that, it's going to also have the most important one called the intent to proceed. That means, okay, I'm ready to move forward with this process and purchase this home and get this loan. Once you sign that, that allows us to order the appraisal, right? Everyone's heard of appraisal, right? We know that typically that in anything, when you're appraising something, you're looking to determine the value of that property or that whatever it is, jewelry, whatever, right? You're looking to appraise it. So we order the appraisal. The appraisal is to make sure that the property is worth what you're purchasing it for, right? What you're getting a loan for it for. The bank doesn't want to give you a loan for more than what a property is worth, right? So they want to make sure it's worth that. So they're going to do the appraisal. The appraiser is going to go out to the property, inspect the property. They're going to do a report and they're going to give us a value, right? That's all within the process that's going on within these 30 days. And this is typically happening really within the first 7-10 days, right? The disclosure signing, the appraisal, all of that stuff, right? At that point, we update any documentation and we submit your loan to an underwriter that's going to review the loan based on whatever loan product or program that we're using, an FHA loan, a down payment assistance loan, etc. And then they're going to give us a loan approval, conditional loan approval. Says, okay, we're going to approve this loan. We need you to give us X, Y, Z, da, 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 da. Right. So it may be an updated pay stub, right? The last ones we had were from February. We're now in March. We need to update the pay stubs. So we'll fulfill those conditions. We submit those back to the underwriter. They sign off on those conditions and we get every real estate agent's favorite words. We are cleared to close. Right. And when you get those terms, that means all of the documentation has been signed off. Your loan is fully approved. And within a few days, you're going to have the keys in your hands. Okay. And then we're going to sign loan docs. That's when you're going to meet with the notary. They're going to sign the official loan documentations with your name being on the deed. And typically the next day, they're going to fund the loan, which means the bank is going to send the money to the escrow company. The escrow company is going to disperse those funds, pay the seller, pay everyone out, and record that property now with your name on it. Once the property is recorded with your name on it with the county, whatever county is that you purchase in, Ashley is going to do her favorite thing is give you the keys to your brand new home, right? So in totality, that's the loan process. Now, the process once we get to signing disclosures is about 30 days, give or take. Now, the pre-approved process, once you get pre-approved and you shop, that could take however long. I've seen people get in the house the first weekend they went out. I've seen people take a year to get into a home, right? So that could take however long it takes you to find a property. But once you find a property and your offer submitted and your offer is accepted, it's going to move fast, right? So I say that not to scare you, but I say that so that you are prepared and you get yourself prepared for that because it's a big change, right? Like I'm going to owe somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're going to freak out. You're going to have moments where your first time home buyer emotions are going to kick in and me and Ashley are going to be right there to help you and calm you. It's a big decision, but it'll be one that will pay off for generations to come. So any questions about the loan process this far? Ashley, anything that I might have missed on the loan process? It's fun. I love the loan process, but it's a little, it can be a little tedious and, not the most attractive thing, but it's a thing that gets us to our ultimate goal where we want to be.
I was just going to include things do move quickly once we open escrow, but that's the reason that we're so big on educating you ahead of time and explaining everything. So that way, when it comes, you're not like, whoa, what's going on? Of course, we'll reiterate, but at least you have an idea of everything. So you kind of know what to expect. So you're not feeling overwhelmed. And then Otis, did you already cover like in terms of like what closing costs are, what they're made of?
I have not yet, but I
Okay,
think
so
I'm
we
going
can
to
hang
get to
that. I
it.
just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. We'll go to the next slide. What's the next slide? Okay, so We'll get into that in this slide, Ashley. Know your top fives, right? So these are some of the things that, you know, as you get into this season and this journey of this part of your life, you know, we're ready to start building our portfolio and purchasing real estate, whether that's our you know, our primary home that we're going to live in, our first home, our starter home, our forever home, our investment home, whatever home it is. There's some numbers that, you know, some things that we think you should just kind of be aware of to get your mindset really flowing in this direction, because it's going to take a lot of momentum to get from start to finish. I'll be honest with you. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it and everybody would own a home. Right. But it's not. All right. So we got to get ourselves prepared to do so. So some of the top five, what's my current income? You know, what am I making? Because, like, believe it or not, because I talk to people every day. I do consultations all week. And I'm like, well, how much do you make? And they're like, oh, I make, you know, after taxes. Like, people sometimes don't really know. The direct deposit comes through. They're able to pay their bills, are able to live their life. They don't really even know what their income is before taxes, right? So what is my income? Especially if you're not W-2 or salaried employed or hourly employed, and you are earning income, entrepreneurial, then what is my income? You know, how much am I making on a consistent basis? What am I averagely making on a month-to-month basis or annual basis, right? What are my current credit debt obligations, right? So the reason why I say that, because that's how we calculate what's your debt to income ratio, right? As a lender, what we look at, what type of debts that you have to pay monthly that show up on your credit. So that doesn't include any of your other living expenses, like your health insurance, your car insurance, your any of that, right? But your things that show up on your credit, your car note, your student loans, your credit cards, any personal loans you might have, etc. What are those obligations? How much am I paying that? Have I ever written that down to like see what my bills are? Let's have a quick moment of transparency and honesty with ourselves. Everybody, please. One in the chat. If you have written down what your actual debts are on a month-to-month basis. One, if you have. Two, if you haven't. One, if you have. Two, if you haven't. Ashley's on it. Ashley's writing it down. Be honest.
To be honest, when things are going good, yes, I know my numbers. When they're not, I shy away from it, because who wants to look at it and face that? So, it's not good.
Yeah, I don't want that. Yeah, I don't. Who wants that? I don't want that type of stress in my life. No, I heard that, and it's tough to do. Like, it sounds so easy, right? But it's really tough to do that type of stuff, right? And you would be surprised, or how frequently you do it, right? To see kind of where you stand. And then the next part is, you know, what kind of monthly mortgage payment can I afford, right? If I'm being honest, and I'm build my business and brand off honesty. Some people love it, some people hate it, right? But if you be honest with yourself, we were once in a market and environment where mortgages were close to, sometime less than rent, right? Where we're not in that market today, where yes, rents are high, but mortgages are higher, if I'm being honest with you, right? But the reason why they're higher is because the value of owning is higher, right? Over time, people are earning more through owning. That's why it costs more to own, right? If people were losing money, then then nobody would be buying homes. It would be easy to get in, but people aren't losing money. People are making money, right? So how much can I afford, right? Knowing that more than likely me purchasing a home is going to cost more than whatever I'm paying right now. This is an honest conversation that we have to have with ourselves. What's that look like? So that means maybe I can't get Starbucks every day anymore, because if I'm honest and I look at myself, I'm hitting the Uber Eats too much, right? Or whatever the case may be, right? Have that honest conversation. What can I afford on this, knowing that it's probably going to be a little bit more than what I'm paying right now, okay? But it is going to benefit me and my family greatly over time, okay? Next part. What do I have saved up?
In, for example, like some people have the opportunity to live with family, right? So let's say you're paying $1,000 a month, but your expected mortgage is going to be, making this up, I don't know, $4,000. Then that means you should be able to save that difference. Each month, you should be able to stack that. And that way you're showing yourself, okay, I can truly afford this. I have a discipline. Because it's really hard sometimes if you have the opportunity to stay with family and it's so low, when you jump into this higher number, you don't want that shock, even though you make it. It's just having the discipline, because you're going to have that new expense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Next part is what do I have saved up for down payment and closing costs? Okay. So this was a question that Ashley was asking. And so real quick before we discuss, because I think down payment is self-explanatory. We know what the down payment is. But let's see. One in the chat if you know what closing costs is, two in the chat if you don't know what closing costs is. I just want to get an idea of where we at, of what people know about closing costs. Is closing costs like the scary thing that you've heard all these bad things about and that you're afraid of? Tell me what y'all think. Two, never heard of it. Okay. I mean, not aware of what it is. Okay. Ashley's aware of what it is. Okay. All right. So closing costs. Okay. So every loan, every purchase loan, every loan, whether it's a purchase or refinance, you're going to have what they consider closing costs, right? So closing costs are made up typically of three major components, right, that make up closing costs. So closing costs typically is the remainder of your down payment, right? That's normally a part of your closing costs, because when you make your deposit, that's not your full down payment, right? So let's say that you guys are purchasing a property for $600,000, right? And you guys do a deposit for 2% as your earnest money deposit, right? That's what you're going to put in escrow up front once your contract is accepted, saying that you're serious about buying this house. And that's going to go towards your down payment, right? So that's only 2%, but your down payment is 3.5%. So you're going to bring the remaining 1.5% at the end when you close. So the rest of that is tacked into your closing costs. The rest of your down payment is bought in with your closing costs, right? The other component of down payment is what they call third-party costs, third-party fees, right? So that's what the title company charges and what the escrow company charges. Now, in most transactions, the buyer pays their portion and the seller pays their portion, right? And those, whatever the fee is, they're split, right? So whatever title charges for their services, escrow charges for their services, they're split, and you guys pay each your own, right? But that part is negotiated within the contract, but it is pretty standard for each to pay their own. So that's the other part of closing costs. The other component of closing costs is any lender charge or origination costs, right? So if there's a loan program, let's say for utilizing a down payment assistance program, there's typically an origination cost for that. That's a part of your closing costs. So those are the components that go within the closing costs. Now, they're going to vary based on the type of loan that you're doing, right? Or the amount of the loan amount of the home, right? So someone at $300,000 purchase price, closing cost is going to be less than someone at $600,000 purchase price, right? Closing costs, right? So it's going to be based off of the amount of the loan as well, as well as the particulars. So those are your three major components of closing costs. That's what it consists of, right? And so all of that's bought in at closing. So that means once we've gotten the clear to close, you sign the loan docs, that's when you wire your closing costs, the remainder of your down payment, any of your third-party fees. And the other part is that I missed, which is super important, because most loans, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, you're going to have it called impounded, right? Impounded means your homeowner's insurance and your property taxes are going to be included in your monthly payment, right? And that's required on all FHA loans, right? So when you close on the loan, a part of your closing costs, they're going to take 1 year. They're going to take 1 year of your homeowner's insurance as a part of your closing costs and pay it up front. So your homeowner's insurance for the first year is already paid up front. And then when you make your payment every month, they're going to take a portion of that to pay for your next policy when that one expires. Okay. So and then the same with your property taxes. They're going to, when you close on the property, they're going to take a portion of the property taxes that are due. Property taxes are due twice a year, April 1st and November 1st, right? So let's say right now it's March. Let's say so you purchase a property in June, right? So the property taxes are going to be due in November. You wouldn't have made enough payments to have enough in your impound account to pay the property taxes. So they're going to take that at closing so that it's already paid for. So they're going to pay your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance on your behalf every time it's due. You're just going to make that all within the same mortgage payment every month. So it's not something extra that you have to worry about paying. So all of that is a part of closing costs. And then when we do your consultation and we get into escrow, we go into more detail about what that looks like. The last part on our top 5 is what are you currently paying for that can be sacrificed for you to purchase this home? And I kind of talked about that a little bit. It's like I did the excruciating work of looking at my bank statement, right? And like looking at where my money is going. And like we spend a lot of frivolous money. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, where can I tighten my belt and, you know, maybe save an extra $200-300 a month? And what could that impact do on me purchasing a property or another property, et cetera? Right. So these are the top 5 that I would recommend that, you know, we recommend that you just ask yourself. And it really sparks a conversation and the mind to just kind of start to think and, you know, put yourself in a different perspective. So any questions on the top 5? Anything that you want to add on the top 5, Ashley, before we move forward? Ashley, you're on mute.
Okay. Hold on, let me turn this down. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I was gonna say, sometimes you get to the point where you can't skimp anymore, and it might end up being like you kind of just do the little side hustle type of thing. I know that won't go towards your income possibly, but it's just to kind of give yourself an extra cushion. So, you know, it's a lot easier to make more than it is to save if you're at the point where like you cut everything, like there's nothing left to cut, you know? So there's that option as well.
Absolutely. Before we go to the next page, last time I'm actually gonna do something in the chat. I think based on the climate in which our society is in, our country is in, are you more fearful or optimistic about buying a home? 1, if you're more fearful. 2, if you're more optimistic, in the chat for me. Well, I'm gonna give y'all a few seconds. I want to see if everybody could type in on this. 1, if you're more fearful in this market. 2, if you're more optimistic in this market. And there's no wrong answer. Janae, I'm both. I heard that. Okay. Any more? Let's see. Okay, Bree. Bree said, I'm ready for the smoke. I won't mind. I ain't mad. I'm not mad. Okay, so let's go to the next screen and we're going to talk a little bit about this. We'll give some facts. I really like to deal in fact, especially in a time when we're in a society that's extremely emotional. There's a lot of things to rile your emotion, to knock you off of your pivot and, you know, take you off of the mindset of where you know, really want to be, right? So we're going to talk a little about this. We'll delve in and we'll take questions. I'm really passionate about this stuff because I know how important owning property is. I've seen it and I have seen it for a decade now. What owning property is going to, you know, what it does for a family, right? So let's look at some facts, right? So home sales are slated to increase by 10.5% this year, and home prices are estimated to increase by 4.6%. So we remember we asked that question when we started earlier in the session. Are home sales going down? Well, and this is from the National Association of Realtors, right? This particular data. So home sales are still going to increase in this market, in this environment. Home prices are going to increase in this market, in the society as is. So what does that tell you? That people are focusing on building their wealth regardless of what's happening around them. There's a lot that's happening around us, right? And so we've seen the shock, right? The high interest rate shock, right? That hit us, slapped us in the face November 22. I'm just now recovering, honestly, right? We went from 3% and 4% rates to 5 to 6 to 7% interest rates, right? Virtually overnight. And nobody thought it would be this long, but nobody thought that we would, have a global pandemic that lasted for as long as it did. And we went through all the things that we did, and we went through this high inflationary period and that we're still going through within in our country. Nobody, well, at least the people that made the decision didn't think that that this would happen, right? And so nonetheless, we're here. So we've seen a lot of consumer and buyers sentiment drop, right? People got really afraid 2022, 2023, even early 2024. People were really afraid. But I think now people's fears come off and people are like, look, I got to get back to it, right? And so we see mortgage applications were down for all of 2024. Mortgage applications were down, right? So but they've picked up, right? And they've increased already by 13% from 2023, and we're only in March, which means people are applying for mortgages. People are back out there. People are still getting excited. People are, regardless of what's happening. So I say that to say to the people that are on this call, and I think it's buying a home is important to all of you. We must quiet the noise. We must put our plan in motion, and we must work that plan regardless of what's happening, right? Let's talk about interest rates, right? Interest rates are super important because that's what your payment is based off of, right? It's how much interest you're going to be paying, right? So interest rates have been playing a nasty game of seesaw, up and down, up and down. And that's primarily because the Federal Reserve increased interest rates to get inflation down, right? But because we're consumers at the highest level, we want to show that we can still spend. So what did we do as Americans? We ran up credit card debt. Credit card debt today is highest as it's ever been on a month-to-month carryover basis, right? We're trying to outspend inflation. If we're honest, most of us, like, if we're being real, things have gotten so expensive to where you think about things that you normally buy differently, right? Just based on, I thought the egg thing was was like a social media joke, right? Because I don't buy eggs that often, whatever. I went to the store, I bought some eggs, and it was like $15. And I'm just like, what is happening, right? Inflation is still very high, and it's going to be high because we won't stop spending, right? We're telling them that we have it, but we don't have it, right? And so until that happens and the market truly slows, interest rates are going to stay in this very stagnated place, which I would say right now we're in between the high fives for well qualified buyers, and we're in between the 6 and 7s depending on the most of the field in terms of where interest rates are. There are 2 Federal Reserve cuts still scheduled for this year, but they are going to base that off what the data looks like every month. So if the data doesn't show they should cut the interest rate again, it won't get cut again. But I'm saying this and giving you guys information because regardless of what happens, if buying a home is important to you, you have to put your plan together and work towards your plan, regardless of what's happening, right? So 2 rate cuts are still scheduled. We're going to cross our fingers, right? And I will implore all of you to not buy stuff that you don't need right now. Not only just to save to buy a house, but to get the economy back to the place it needs to be so that we can get all of these things back to where they need to be. Because this isn't just interest rates on houses. This is interest rates on cars. This is interest rates on your credit card. This is interest rates on anything that you pay interest on that is going to be increased the longer we stay in the climate in which we're in. Now, again, I can be very passionate. I hope you guys were able to receive that about this. But I give you this information because I want us to all be prepared for what we want in 2025, what we want for our families, what we want for our legacies, right? So any questions about the market? I seen some fear. I seen some optimistic. I think, again, there's no wrong answer because I think there are a lot of things out there that could be fearful, right? But I'm a strong component of I'm gonna do it anyways, right? Like I took an extreme risk leaving my salary job to work in an industry that I didn't really know all the way yet to get paid, hopefully, right? That's extreme. Like that was my mom still today doesn't understand. Like, what are you doing? How do you get paid, right? And so that was a fear that I had to overcome, but the reward outweighed the fear, right? And the reward of you guys buying the home and building a legacy, like we talked about, for your family, for the freedom of being able to do what you want, for the legacy, for the investment, for the ability to pass it down, that far outweighs any fear that you have. It has to. I'll rest my case. Thank you all.
I was just gonna touch on, I don't know my audio, touch on, yeah, rates were so low during the pandemic that people got used to it, but that was abnormally low. They'll only go that low when there's some crazy thing happening in the world. So when it's that low, it means good for buyers, but it's actually bad, you know? But anywho, and where they're at now, and you can speak to this better than I can, Otis, because that's your field, they're normal. So I think it's been long enough that people are kind of getting the idea like, okay, this is where it's at. I'm going to make this jump. I need to just jump in there and go ahead and purchase. And then, of course, it's always like, you know, just get what you can afford. You can afford it with today's rates. If rates come down, you can always refinance later. Otis, you can explain what a refinance is if anyone doesn't know.
Yeah, and I'm doing that. We're doing that for clients now. Yeah, we're doing that for a few clients now that bought in 2023, 2022, once the rates were higher. We just closed a couple of clients that lowered their rates from where they bought at the high. That like I had a client that had a 7.99, right? And we got them to a 6.25, right? Saved them about $600, $600 a month in the mortgage payment. But again, if they never got in the house, then they wouldn't have been able to refinance and get it down, right? And that's only now. Now, when rates come down again, they refinance again, we get them into a lower payment, right? So again, you can't get it lowered if you can't get in. And remember, and a flash from the past, and actually you can tell them whether I'm lying or telling the truth. During the pandemic, when rates were 2, 3, 4%, the amount of people to get into one house was out of this world. That's when properties were going over the value. People were paying out of their pocket 25, 35, 30, 100, $100,000 over what the property was worth because the money was so cheap to borrow. So at that time, I had clients submit 17 offers before they got one accepted because the competition was so heavy because everybody could get a loan because the rates were so low. Well, now the competition isn't as heavy because everybody can't get a loan and people aren't outbidding you by hundreds of thousands of dollars on a house. So every market has its pros and its cons, but it's all about our perspective, how we look at it, how we approach it, and how we maneuver through it.
Yes. Oops, sorry. Yes, I agree. Yes, when rates are higher, there's less buyers. When rates are super low, there's tons of buyers in the market. I would say if you're not someone that's very asset cash heavy, this is a good time to get in there as long as you can afford the payment. Because yes, if rates were to drop, and he's not exaggerating. I remember my clients, one of them, they're like an amazing couple. We're going out every weekend submitting, I think 10 offers. But they, got the house, and now they have equity. So yes, it's definitely, if you're able to afford that payment, just look at the overall payment, not the interest rate alone. Like you said, over time, rates come down, you can always refi, but you have to get in the game to be able to do that.
Because over time, the payment's only going to get lower, not higher. So if you could afford it at its highest, over time, it's only going to go lower. You're about by your balance being lower by you paying the mortgage every month, and then B, with the opportunities for you to refinance whenever they arise, right? 6 months, a year, 2 years, whenever the case may be. But remember, you could afford it at the highest, right? So now we're going to get into an environment where you're able to, every couple of years or so, lower that and save yourself more money over time. Any questions about this part before we move on and Ashley closes out? Any other questions that you guys have about the market, about interest rates? Feel free to off mute to write it in the chat.
As you guys are thinking, I wanted to throw it out there. Otis, you mentioned car notes or car payments. Can you briefly explain how someone's car note can affect their how much mortgage they can afford?
Yeah, so car payment, just like we talked about on the credit slide, was what are your credit obligations, right? So a car note is reported on your credit report every month, right? And that's whether it's a purchase or a lease. So whatever that payment is, that comes out of your income, right? So let's say if the payment is $600 a month, and you make, $6,000 a month, we have to subtract that out of that, right? So that goes into takes away from how much you could qualify for. So it could be a difference. And this is why, like I actually said at the beginning, it's very tough to compare what someone else did, because okay, so someone might have a $500 car note and someone has an $1,100 car note. They might make the same income, but they don't qualify for the same property because their debts aren't the same, right? So yes, a car note is looked at as monthly debt that you have to continue to pay. Now, if the car is a purchase and it's not a lease, and let's say you have less than 10 months left on the car payment, they will exclude that and not count that as a debt, right? And that income could be used towards your purchase. And I said, so if you're close to paying a car off, but you want to get the house and you're under 10 payments, we could exclude that payment at that point. Fatima says, will houses be unaffordable in 2 to 4 years? Houses are unaffordable now for most people. That's a perspective question in it, right? So affordability is subjective, right? Because what's affordable to you may not be affordable to someone else, or vice versa, right? Affordability, especially in LA County, is changing so drastically. What is affordable? What will we deem affordable, right? Like, what's affordable now? There's and I can't remember what publication it was in, but I did read it a couple weeks ago. 28% of adults who have a job, who work in LA County, can afford to purchase a home in LA County, right? So that's essentially 1 in 4. 1 in 4 can afford a home in LA today, right? Now, that doesn't mean they could afford the home where they want to live at, but they can afford a home, right? And so what's going to happen, especially in in the lower part of LA, again, real estate's extremely local. So there's tons of places where real estate is, what some would say, is affordable. But those aren't in large metropolitan areas. Those aren't in your big cities. Those are going to be in the outskirts cities where the prices are going to be lower. But even then, we're seeing that those areas are being rushed to, right? Because look at the IE, right? The IE was $200,000-300,000 a couple years ago. Now it's $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, in Fontana, in Ontario. So, and that's not going to change simply because we have more people that want to live here than houses for them to live. Simple supply and demand. So unless we can build 1 million or 2 homes overnight, you're going to continue to see home values rise. And that's with all the people that are leaving California, right? We're the number 1 exodus state, and still have the biggest housing problem out of every state, because everybody wants to live where everybody lives, right? And then people don't want to, like, let's be honest, like, none of us really want to live in California City. There's tons of properties out there. You can go get a great house for like $200,000-300,000, but nobody wants to live in California City. You know what I mean? So that's where most people's income could afford today, right? But that's not where people want to live. So it will take timing. It will take putting the right strategy together to get it. But I think in terms of affordability, I think that that's in one's own mind. And whatever your amount is, you got to find something that works for that. Whatever yours is, right? So if you say my payment max is $4,000, then we need to find a house that best fits your needs with that payment. And that's going to happen at any time, whether that's today in 2 to 4 years or whatever. That should always be the mindset and approach. I hope that answers your question.
I'm going to add in, as you said, Otis, as you said earlier, home prices are projected to increase 4.6%. So just for example, there's a single family house, it was $800K. That means the next year it's going to go up almost $37,000. So just to kind of give you an idea. And then also I was going to include, like you said, there's the outskirt areas. There's always the option of getting, let's say it's just you, get a 1-bedroom condo. Get what you can afford, or if they're just looking at other areas. And then also get creative. I've had clients where it was 2 sisters, they put the resources together and they purchased a property. And it's a nice sized house in a cool area. So there's that option as well.
Yeah, and then you have
creative.
Yeah, you have a multi-unit option as well. Let's say like a duplex, a 2-unit property. Let's say like maybe we're not getting enough affordability with the single family amount or whatever. So maybe we look at doing a duplex because we can add the rental income from the other unit into your income to help you qualify for more. That could be an option if you're interested with dealing with the tenant and all of that stuff. So there's lots of different ways, as long as you're working with the team and where everybody's honest and we put everything on the table so we can put a plan together, because there's a million different ways to make it happen, right? But the hardest part is to start. The hardest part is to start.
Yeah, or maybe you don't want to go to if you don't want to go the landlord route, you can do a single family. Like if you have a sibling you get along with, you know how each other are, or a friend that you always together with anyway, and it works out and you have enough space, that's an option too. You stay there a few years, get your equity, and then you guys can sell it and then go on to your separate property.
And let me share one other thing with you guys, because we're home buyers, like we're individuals, right? And we look at this stuff one way. Now let me share with you guys what investors look at and how they're looking at these same numbers that we're looking at on this paper, right? If anybody knows anything about investing, right, a 4.6% return, and that's pretty much guaranteed, is a pretty good return on an investment year over year, right? Most things don't give you that amount of a return, especially something that you can see. Like we're not talking about like a Bitcoin or a stock or something, because even those are much more volatile and it doesn't guarantee a return. So investors are going to look at this and say, oh, homes are appreciating in an inflationary market. We should buy more homes. While we're emotional and saying we don't want to live there or we don't do this or that, right? They're going to simply look at the numbers and say, if I can make $37,000 more by simply making this purchase, I'm going to do it. That's how the big business is looking at this, right? So we're not only up against the challenges of the price itself, we're up against big business that want to take that home and make you rent it from them, right? Again, I say this to not down you. I say it to set realistic expectation and know that it will be a battle, but you have a team and we will get there. So it's super important to make sure that your perspective when jumping into something this massive is set and is on point, because the challenges are there, but just know that you can overcome them. And Ashley, you're on mute, but I think that's it. If there's no other questions, Ashley can go ahead and close us out. Thank you all again. I appreciate your time this morning. You're on mute, Ash.
Oh no, I was just going to see if there's any questions in the chat or anything. But thank you all for joining us. This slide, you're welcome to take a screenshot of it. If you're not already following me, please go ahead and follow me. I'm most active on Instagram at Ashley Kendi Realtor. I have Otis information on there as well at Otis L Milton. And then, like I said in the beginning, I will be emailing everyone both our contact information. I'm going to have links for our calendars on there, so that way we can. We want to schedule like a one-on-one call with you. It's quick. Just we want to really see, like, dive in deep, see where you're at right now, and how we can assist you getting from where you're at right now currently to homeownership. If you have any friends or family that could use our services, feel free to please refer us to them as well. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to register and join us. I know it's Saturday, the sun is out, it's looking nice in LA, so you could be anywhere, but you guys chose to invest into yourselves and your families into this information. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you all again. Thank you, Ashley, again for having me. I appreciate you always. Thank you to all the future homeowners on the call. Again, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Our contact information is up. Oh, I don't know why. Maybe I copied it wrong. Let me put my other link in here for you, Ashley. Let me see. Oh, that's weird. Let me get my other link. Okay, there we go. And I'll figure out what's up with my website. Let me contact my people. But that's it for me. Thank you guys again. I appreciate you all. You guys have a great weekend, and feel free to follow up with us as well. And we'll definitely do the same.
Yes, so be on the lookout for the email. If I have a phone number, I'll text you as well. I'll include all our information. I'm also going to send you my home buying guide, so you can kind of just browse through that as well. And thank you again. Enjoy your weekend.